Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Democrat candidate for Attorney General Phil Weiser.
Good morning, everybody. First off, is John Stolp here? Somewhere? Where's John? I got lights on me. Let's give a round of applause to John for all his leadership. I am so glad to be with you all. You all represent what's best in Colorado. Colorado's water law and policy is one of the unique and innovative contributions that Colorado has made to the world. Your collaborative spirit, innovative thinking is essential to how we are going to thrive and be a model for our nation. I'm running to be your Attorney General, and I know well that one of my most important responsibilities is to work with you on water law and policy. It is the lifeblood of our state. I've had the experience over the last 20 years or more learning about water law. At the University of Colorado Law School, where I served as professor and as dean, I had colleagues like Jim Corbridge, David Getchus, who I was able to learn about this important area. As a candidate, John has been a powerful teacher of mine. I'll get to that in a minute. Russ George, David Robbins, and James Eklund. I also want to give it up for Patty Limerick. Where's Patty? Let's give it up for Patty. Because there is not a better teacher on the spiritual side of Colorado than Patty Limerick. And it's an honor to be your colleague and friend. What I want to share about with John is the time we spent together in Crowley County, where I've been twice as a candidate. I'm not sure how many statewide candidates have been to Crowley County twice, but for me it was important. It's important because Crowley County is, and I quote John here, the poster child of how not to handle water. The stakes, as you all know extremely well, are high. Where a community like Crowley County sells all its water rights, it loses its blood. It loses its ability to survive, and Crowley County is holding on now. Its major industry is prisons. And I, as Attorney General, want to work with Crowley County and all parts of our state on a range of issues, helping to address the opioid epidemic, helping to lower healthcare costs, and helping to manage water. And I've learned from a lot of you. I've got a blog post on my website. Please take a look. I view this as a conversation where I need your engagement. If you read my blog post and you say, Phil, you got something wrong, let me know. Send me an email. Talk to some people I've mentioned who are helping to school me. It's important we work together and get this right. What I want you to know about my policy as Attorney General is will be collaborative. It will be professional and open door. We, at our best in Colorado, solve problems together. That's the type of Attorney General I will be. I also know that we are at a time without a water law expert on our Supreme Court. Both Greg Hobbs and Becky Corliss are people I've known for a while, friends, and I've learned from them. Right now, the AG's office is more important than ever because there'll be times when we may need to give expert guidance to our Supreme Court without a justice with the knowledge of a Greg Hobbs or Becky Love Corliss. I also know that we're going to have challenges ahead. The 2026 guidelines process, that's going to start soon. And it's going to be super important that we get this right with respect to the Colorado River. One point that we all here have seen is how climate change has made this more challenging. We used to have more natural storage with snowpack. With less of it, that creates more needs for smart storage that can make up for what we used to have naturally. We need leadership in the legislature so we can better manage reuse, and thankfully we have Jenny Arndt. Come on, Jenny. The reuse bills that passed this year are an important step, and we also have to be smart and vigilant about conservation because these tools work together for us to manage our water and we are going to need active demand-side management as we go forward. What I want to tell you is I know there will be times when we will have to litigate, but we should approach that with caution and eyes wide open. I had the pleasure of clerking for Justice Byron White and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court. Justice Byron White loved water law cases because he was a lawyer from Colorado, and he enjoyed getting his hands into the water, if you will. I was going to say dirty, but it's the wrong metaphor for this. And he loved those cases. What I know, those cases don't get to the Supreme Court before you get through a special master, which can be a painful and long process and doesn't always work out so well. We will do best by minimizing the extent to which we end up in those litigation situations. I know there is litigation right now on the Rio Grande. Thankfully, we are mostly to one side on that. I would like to keep it that way. We also have challenges around how we manage groundwater. We're going to need active management there, issues both in the Republican River District and the Rio Grande. That's something I will want to keep an eye on. As Attorney General, you have multiple roles you play because there are multiple entities that you engage, provide legal advice to, from the governor. And our governor, working with John, has done a great job with the water plan to help create the framework we need. The Colorado Water Conservation Board, where I will sit as Attorney General, plays a very important role. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, making sure we manage water quality. We have lots of issues that we're going to face. I'm not afraid of facing them because I know together we will work hard, we will be collaborative, we will be smart, and Colorado will be an international leader on water innovation. We can do this when we work together with the right way. You don't solve it by talking points, political games, pointing figures. You solve it by working together. And the people in this room, I have such appreciation for your work. I'm excited to work with you on this, and I want to leave plenty of time to answer any questions and get any feedback you might have.
Okay, Phil. We've got a couple of questions. If you are elected and another candidate from another party is elected as governor, how would you see working across with the partisan issues there?
Professionally and collaboratively. The Constitution makes it clear I am the lawyer for the executive branch, which means conversations with the governor and executive branch agencies are lawyer-client conversations. That duty to provide legal advice is something I will take seriously and I will honor, the same way Ken Salazar did with Bill Owens, and the same way John Suthers did with both Bill Ritter and John Hickenlooper. The level of contentiousness between our Attorney General's office and our governor's office today, it's not how we want to be in Colorado. It's not true to our Constitution. I will make sure to give high-quality professional legal advice. If there are differences on policy matters, I will also tell the governor, an executive branch agency, I don't think that's a smart way to handle, say, health care, and I would be willing to tell the legislature my views too, but that won't stop me from providing fair, thoughtful, and effective legal advice.
Great. Next question. This should be an easy one. Do you believe the Attorney General may refuse to defend a state law that he or she does not personally support, or does the Attorney General have an ethical obligation to defend the state's laws?
Yes, that would be the gimme question. The obligation of the Attorney General is to defend and enforce the law. This is foundational, and it is only in the rarest of circumstances, which Ken Salazar actually did face, when an action by the executive branch is unconstitutional. So Governor Bill Owens signed a bill creating gerrymandered districts in violation of our Constitution. And Ken said to Bill, you can't do this. It violates the Constitution. And Bill said, well, you're just one lawyer. I'll do what I want. Ken took the responsibility to the Constitution and did file a case. And thanks to that, we have competitive districts here in Colorado. That's an extreme exception on a range of issues from Tabor to other matters. My duty is to defend and enforce the law.
Okay. This is a little bit long question, so on the entry, just to set some stage on this, but it's something I think you're familiar with. Colorado voters adopted Amendment 71 in 2016, making it harder to amend the state constitution for future initiatives. A U.S. district judge has entered an injunction backing Amendment 71's requirement to collect signatures from 2% of the registered voters in Colorado's 35 Senate districts. The Attorney General representing the Secretary of State has appealed to the 10th Circuit of Appeals, seeking to overturn the injunction and dismiss the legal challenge to Amendment 71. Do you agree with the current Attorney General's approach in defending Amendment 71?
I do. We're going to win that case. This is a outlying opinion, and the amendment, I believe, is constitutional. I believe we will win at 10th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Excellent. Next question. What is your view as to property rights in water and minerals? Would you defend these rights as Attorney General? And I might just kind of add on that too. We've got a pretty far-sweeping initiative on takings that's going to looks like it may make on the ballot, Initiative 108, that has to do with local or any government, local or state government, passing laws that would reduce property values. So maybe have you comment on those.
It's a multi-part question there.
Yeah, we
See
can
if
break.
I can
We'll
make
break
sure I
that down.
get all the parts and add a little
Let's-
flavor
let's
to boot.
start slower. Yeah. So, what is your view on property rights in regards to water and mineral rights, and then we can go on to 108 maybe.
I believe in them.
That was easy. Okay. So.
No, actually, let me just, we cannot take this for granted. The rule of law says when you have a property right, whether it's in water, minerals, land, a patent, you get to use it without interference, without holdup, or games by the government. In many countries around the world, that's not true. There's not a single more important foundation of our economy than when people have a property right or have a contract, they trust that the court system and that our rule of law will protect them so they can develop their property and make money doing it. That's the heart of what has made our economy grow and has built trust by investors. I've been very involved in the entrepreneurship community in Colorado the last 20 years, helped start Startup Colorado, the Blackstone Entrepreneurs Network. I've seen this up close. And I will say the attacks on the rule of law, the threats on an independent judiciary could undermine what has been the foundation of our nation. We have to be committed, no matter who you are, what you look like, what the property right is. We've got to defend these legal rights because it's the foundation of our economy.
Great. And for those of you in the audience, again, if you have questions, please write them on the index card and get them. Our volunteers will pick them up. Phil, this is a little bit long of a question too, but the Attorney General is representing the state of Colorado as a defendant in a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court, Hill versus Warsaw, involving ownership and access to the Arkansas River bed in Fremont County. The complaint claims that the state owns the bed of the Arkansas River across private property under the federal doctrine of navigability for title. Bear with me, folks. And requests a declaration that the state holds title to the river in trust for the public. The AG has moved to dismiss this case based on the 11th Amendment immunity and the plaintiff's lack of standing to assert the state's title. CU law professor Mark Squillace wrote an op-ed column a few months ago arguing that the state should join the plaintiff's arguments that the state holds the riverbed in trust for the public. So, now the question.
Well,
does anybody remember that?
Given the topic, you have given me a chance to share a few points. One is, I can tell you that being the dean of a law faculty, and you've mentioned one of our colleagues, I believe is among the best training you can have to lead an office because there's no more lawyers who are more challenging to manage than law professors. And I can tell you the campaign has been challenging, but as Henry Kissinger said about academic politics, they're so vicious because the stakes are so small. So I am well prepared from that angle. I also have to share, because you mentioned 11th Amendment, one of my favorite Justice White memories, and I could share a couple. Many of you know Barney White. Is Barney here this year? Well, Barney, as you all know, is an extraordinary person. So was his dad. I was clerking for his dad. He was retired at the time, and his dad had joined a prior 11th Amendment case that had given the states less protection. It was called Union Gas. And the year I was clerking, the court in a case called Seminole Tribe overruled Union Gas. But what was wild about Justice White's opinion on Union Gas, he was the deciding vote, and only Justice White could do this. He wrote a very short concurrence that said, I agree with the majority, but for different reasons, period. So no one knew what the governing rationale was, because Justice White didn't offer it. And in one way, that was Justice White being intellectually honest, because he kind of thought he had the right result, but didn't know why. And rather than make something up, he just said, nope, this is where I am. And when I told him that case had been overruled, he had the most wonderful wry smile that I'll never forget. So Justice White, obviously on 11th Amendment, was one side, Seminole Tribe is on the other, and my understanding of the jurisdictional issues in this case are correct. This should be dismissed from federal court. There's a separate question about the facts, about whether or not the river was navigable at the time of statehood. I've not dug deep enough into that to have an answer on it, but I do believe this case, as such, for procedural reasons, should and will go away.
Great, thank you. As a Front Range resident and professor in, at Boulder, how are you willing to build ties with Colorado's rural communities?
By showing up, by caring, and by building relationships. So, John Porco's here somewhere, who I've seen twice in Pagosa Springs, both times at one of the best bakeries in Colorado. I recommend it. I mentioned my visit with John Stolp to Crowley County. I've been over 6 times to the San Luis Valley talking about the issues there. Spent a lot of time in Grand Junction, in Craig, in Sterling. The only way to do this job is to show up and build relationships. That's what Coloradans care about. There's a saying that sometimes you hear in teaching circles. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I care a lot about our state. I believe our state is the model of what this country needs to be. And if we don't do our job to be the best innovative, collaborative, in it together Colorado that we can be, shame on us, because our nation needs us to be a model of what problem solving looks like in the 21st century. And there's not a better example than water. Yes, I happen to live in Denver, but that doesn't mean, pardon the metaphor, I'm carrying Denver's water on these issues. Bad water joke, I'm sorry. I'm here for the whole state of Colorado. That is going to be my true north, and I'm going to think about people all across the state. I'm going to consult them, and I'm going to keep building relationships. I can also say this is not like, oh, I'm a candidate, so I decided to travel the whole state. When I was the law school dean, I went places no law school dean had ever gone. Pueblo, Grand Junction, Durango. And I built relationships then, which is helping me as a candidate now. Ask the people who've gotten to know me across the state, and you get the answer to this question.
Great, thank you. And we're going to go back to Initiative 108 again. And just for the audience that may not be as familiar with this, Initiative 108 would change the taking standards to any diminution of fair market value. Do you support that policy? Would it freeze all new zoning and regulations?
I'm super concerned about this ballot proposition, and I recognize it is responding to another ballot proposition. We in Colorado need to recognize the challenge of managing oil and gas development. At our worst, we see polarized, dysfunctional, a lot of heat, not a lot of light, battles that get high-pitched, and people aren't listening. There are ways to manage oil and gas development that listen to community members and their concerns and address them. There are a lot of local jurisdictions working hard to do that. I want to be an attorney general who works with those jurisdictions to craft solutions. And a lot of oil and gas companies have said, we're willing to figure out issues like noise, responsiveness, casings, et cetera. I want to help make sure we keep people safe. If we end up with both these ballot propositions passing, we are going to have a mess on our hands, because this one you just mentioned that raises the taking standard sets a standard that we're not sure exactly what it is, what it looks like, and it does threaten to create a whole lot of uncertainty and a whole lot of litigation. I'd much rather us work to make the status quo work, and that's the approach I want to take as Attorney General.
The Office of the Attorney General also gets involved quite a bit in interstate litigation around our compacts. We got quite a bit going on the Colorado River, Rio Grande, on the Arkansas, the South Platte. What would be your approach to preparing Colorado to have a solid position as we are working with other states on these issues?
If you do your homework and lay the groundwork first, the chances are you may not need to be in litigation, which is a great outcome. And the work that's going on right now vis-a-vis Arizona to prevent that from becoming a full-throated dispute is a model of the sort of problem solving and groundwork that we have to do. I mentioned earlier, the litigation process before a special master, then all the way up to the Supreme Court, it's among the more cumbersome processes that we can deal with. We should not go into this without being full aware of why we're doing it, what we're trying to accomplish, and how and why we can win. So I would go into this having looked at every angle and pursued every way to make sure that if we're doing it for the right reasons, and we're going to come out better for it.
Okay, one last question for you. And when you're thinking about water, and the Attorney General does have a few other things that you have to work on as well, how would you feel that water would fit into overall priorities? And maybe a second part of that, what other priorities would you have as Attorney General?
Let me first start with the water, and then I'll go more broadly and give you a kind of closing spiel, if you will. The point on water, it is so foundational to so much of our state. It'd be one of my very top priorities. This is not an issue an AG can afford to mail it in, not care about. You need the best legal mind, the best leader on this issue as part of the team to get the best ideas to the table for us to approach this the most effective ways possible. So it will always be and will remain one of my top priorities. It just matters so much to our state in so many ways. What else is motivating me? We are at a time, and I've made reference to this, where our nation does feel like it could be wobbly, maybe not quite on the solid ground we need. I'm terrified by that, and I'm committed to Colorado being a leader in showing what responsible governance looks like. Governance to the rule of law, and at a time when Washington might be less than willing to follow the rule of law, we need our Attorney General committed to it. What do I mean by that? The Affordable Care Act gives everybody protection against discrimination if they have a pre-existing condition. That's the law. It was passed by Congress. It was upheld by the Supreme Court. And yet, our federal Justice Department under Jeff Sessions is seeking to undermine that by refusing to defend and enforce the law, leaving a lot of people terrified about whether they have this protection. And I've talked to people, Honey recently in Alamosa, who talked about her son who's got a pre-existing condition, and this law has saved her son's life. Well, I'll fight for that law, and I'll fight for protecting the rule of law, even if, and particularly when, our federal government doesn't. We in Colorado developed a rule managing methane emissions to protect our state and our clean air. That was a rule passed with collaboration of the best way we do it, bringing people together at the table. So Colorado had this rule. The EPA said, Colorado, you're good, you've got your rule. We'll pass a rule that will protect you from methane emissions from surrounding states, which are 2/3 of the methane emissions we have. What did our Attorney General do? She sued the EPA to undermine the rule that our companies were in compliance with and that would have helped our citizens. That wasn't representing our people in Colorado. And when the current EPA head, Scott Pruitt, sorry, not anymore, just recently departed EPA head Scott Pruitt, sought to get rid of this rule, our governor said, we need this rule here in Colorado, and our Attorney General wouldn't protect it. So my view is we need a lawyer committed to making sure everyone's treated fairly. Equal justice for all, protecting our land, air, and water. That is my mission statement. And it comes from a commitment to protect the people of Colorado with substantive leadership that comes from asking, how can we do better? How do we bring people together to solve problems? That's been my true north my whole life, starting from clerking here for David Ebell after I came out of law school, working in the Supreme Court, working in the Justice Department in 2 administrations, working here at CU in our community. People in Colorado want to work together. They need to trust in our government. I want to make sure our Attorney General's office operates in a way that builds trust. Because if we can't govern ourselves effectively here in Colorado, our nation's in trouble. On that happy note, let me give you a final pitch. You guys have a chance to hear from me and the person running against me. If you decided, gosh, Phil, I'd like you to be the lawyer for the state of Colorado, I really need your help because I need you to help get my message out. This is going to be a campaign with a lot of deceptive attacks. We saw that 4 years ago against Don Quick when he ran. I expect it coming to me. What I need is people who think, you know what, I want a lawyer who's smart, effective, cares about people on water, and shows up in communities around the state. If that's the lawyer you're looking for, and maybe fill in healthcare costs or bring a broadband to your community, I want to be your lawyer. If you want to sign up to be on my email list, they're great emails. philforcolorado.com is my website. The way I want this campaign to go is getting our message out from trusted leaders like you. If you're willing to be a part of that, feel free to come talk to me, send me an email, go to our website. Democracy has to be a team sport. Thank you for all your leadership. Take care.
Thank you, Phil Weiser.